SAFM, leading the conversation. The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana, weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, let's get straight into our Municipal Watch feature. Mielani Holeni is the Chief Group Advisor at Ndiso Consulting. He's also a local government revenue and governance expert. And today we're looking at the roles and responsibilities of political and administration in local government. Mielani, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning, Kathy, and good morning to all the listeners.
Of course, you are, shall I say, you are our resident local governance expert on the Talking Point. And part of the reason why we had the conversation last month already to have different topics in the slot, because we know usually the slot we focus on what's going wrong in municipalities, which is all good and well. But we also have to empower ourselves as residents in these municipalities to understand the function of local government better, so that we are able to exercise the agency, the power that we have to go and get the answers that we need where things are not working to our satisfaction. Because it's not enough to complain and to protest when there are ways in which we have been empowered legislatively that give us at least certain levels of power that enables us to access what is happening behind the scenes so that we can be satisfied. So today, you've identified the issue of political officials and administrative officials. And I was saying earlier that this is actually one of the biggest areas which cause problems at a local government level, because there doesn't seem to be the distinction between those that are there for political purposes versus those that are supposed to be playing a purely administrative role.
Absolutely. And I think it's crucial that the roles and responsibilities be understood, be known, be described, as well as be ascribed to each one of the people who are supposed to be part and parcel of local government. And as you've correctly pointed out, local government has the political side. It also has the administrative side. Now, to break it down perhaps, into the various areas is that, on the political side, we can just assume that, firstly, let's understand that a municipality has a council, which is, now a council that is responsible for the entire municipality, of which there are representatives from the political side, as well as, those that are sitting in from the administrative side on a technical advisory capacity. So that is the makeup of that municipality. And of course, there are councillors. In the basic way of looking at the political side is to look at the fact that there are councillors that are elected through elections, of which we've just had elections for local government. And of course, we're going for elections for provincial and national. So similar to how members of parliament would be elected so that they occupy the seats in parliament, so councillors occupy those seats in council. So council is the parliament, if you want, for local government. So within there, then you will start having the different categories of the members, or at least the designations and positions that the councillors are going to occupy. There will be the executive committee, which is led by the mayor, of which in the executive committee are people who would be members of the mayoral committee. And then there would be councillors who are ward councillors, and then there would be councillors who are proportional representative councillors, which is commonly known as PR councillors. And I'm just outlining the roles so that when we unpack them, they can be understood. And then there'll be committees, of course, because council's role is to make sure that they provide oversight. So the Section 79 committees are appointed by council, and they will typically have, a committee of various councillors with a chairperson within there, which is now to make sure that they carry out, oversight. Then you will have your Section 80 committee as well, which is more a technical committee to advise the executive committee, and then you may have the deputy mayor. Then you have the speaker, which is a very important role that we can talk about, and then mostly the chief whips, and then you would have your non-executive, councillors, which I think, would be your PRs as well as the municipal manager, and then the other officials that may be co-opted, to come and sit, and give technical advice from time to time. So the makeup of a municipality and council from the political as well as the administrative side. So the administrative side, the municipal manager is the head of administration. Political side, the mayor is the head of the political side. And the speaker is the head of council in that way. So I think that's to unpack, the roles, from where we can dive deeper into, okay, what does this mean for the citizens? What does it mean? What roles should they be discharging? How should they be discharging these roles? And how should they carry themselves as each one of the various categories?
Let's start perhaps with the role of the mayor. Because that is often the role that we look at. Take an example like Johannesburg. When things are falling apart, the mayor is the person that is looked at. The high turnover rate of the individuals that have been in the position of mayor are often what is pointed to as what has led to a failure. Look at Ekurhuleni. Just, yesterday they came out with the financial statements for the 2022-2023 year. But it is the position of mayor that is looked at as the individual that is ultimately failing, at least by members of the opposition. They're saying, well, this is the mayor that has overseen a decline in our performance as a municipality.
And of course, as correctly so, because the executive mayor or the mayor in this case, depending on the system that is followed, but let's not worry too much about the systems. But in this case, the mayor is that political head for the municipality, is the one who is ultimately responsible for how the municipality performs. So if you look at it in this case, because they lead the executive committee, which is MMCs, and MMCs are typically responsible for each one of the departments, and the departments would in some ways be service delivery oriented, or they may be support oriented in nature, and so on. So the mayor is really marshalling the troops, which includes now how the council interacts with the administrative side. So the mayor becomes a very important figure within the municipality, and in other cases you can argue that is the executive chairperson of the board in a way, because that is how at least they are dealing with the executives and driving the service delivery. So whatever the executive mayor does, and when we talk about that issue of capability is equals to leadership, strategy and service delivery, you can then say it is that leader that is leading everyone to make sure that there is a strategy, and then there is service delivery. So when we talk of leadership from there on, ultimately the executive mayor or the mayor has to take that accountability for the performance of the entire municipality. Of course, they can then issue the responsibility and accountability or consequences in the areas where it is required. But when we come in, or the AG comes in, or whoever comes in and wants the head of the institution, they will go to the executive mayor or the mayor of that particular municipality.
Is the way in which the system is designed, Mielani, does it create independence between the role of the municipal manager and that of the mayor? And the reason I ask this question is that one of the patterns that we have seen at local government is that often when there's a change in the mayoral position, that seems to have a direct impact on the municipal manager. Suddenly, every mayor seems to want to come in with his own or her own municipal manager. Why does that happen? And is it a function of the way the system is designed, or is it a function of how we have allowed things to happen with our political culture?
So three things can happen. Maybe to conclude, the point and just touch on the legislation. The executive mayor obviously would be appointed, through Section 55 of the Structures Act with very clear responsibilities. I think that is now leading to the fact that are there clear is there clear demarcation of responsibilities between the executive mayor as well as, the municipal manager? Yes, there are clear demarcations, and there are clear roles that, each one must play. For instance, the mayor is supposed to be the one who receives all of those reports, from the administrative side through the executive committee. And their role, it says, for instance, they are entitled to receive reports even from other committees within council, so that, those reports together, they can look at recommendations that are being put forward, and they can then own those recommendations when it comes to a broader sitting of council. And those reports would typically be around, matters that need to be noted, improvements, resolutions that must be taken, corrective action that must be taken. So it also says that, they must identify the needs of the municipality. So they identify the needs. Now, going into the municipal manager, they implement the needs of the municipality as would have been identified from the executive side. And they drive, in fact, the service delivery aspect. So if you just apportion, as I was saying, from that, capability, leadership, is political and so on. Yes, the municipal manager will form a key part of that leadership. However, the executive mayor does not implement. The executive mayor obviously creates the environment, makes sure that, all of, the executive members are understanding of the strategy, the IDP, the SDPIP, or the Service Delivery Budget Implementation Plan, which is adopted on an annual basis, so that, it is understood. And their role is to make sure that, they crack the whip, if I may put it in those simple terms, so that, the municipal manager has to implement all of those things that are resolved in council, that, are at least resolved at the mayoral committee, which is at the sitting of the executive committee of the mayor, and be able to drive now the service delivery imperative. So whereas one would be looking at, perhaps, at a higher level, which is the executive mayor, the municipal manager is looking at the day-to-day issues through all of now the executives that would have been appointed through the Section 56, Section 57 processes. Some are permanent employees and so on. So those are the clear demarcations. The one would be the one that, ensures that things happen. The other one is the one that makes things happen in that way.
So where does the role of the MMCs come in? Again, in relation to the officials that sit under the municipal manager, so that form part of the administration. Yes, the municipal manager is the chief financial officer, but he, of course, like you're saying, is sitting with other managers. Now, how does the accounting channel flow? Because MMCs are actually individuals that get to fly under the radar. We don't pay a lot of attention to MMCs. We see them come up every once in a while in maybe perhaps areas that have coalition governments where there's a tussling for who must be in what position, and there are lots of trade-offs for the MMC positions. But generally, they don't get a lot of attention. They seem to just be flying under the radar, and we don't get to know what it is that they're busy with, what it is that they're doing. So I'd want you also just to expand on the role of these MMCs at a local government level. It's 10:30. We'll continue the conversation with Mielani Holeni in a moment. Time for your latest news headlines. We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. You're listening to Municipal Watch. Today we're looking at the roles and responsibilities of the political officials and, of course, the administrators in local government. Mielani Holeni joins us. He is, of course, a local governance expert and also a local government revenue expert. He's Chief Group Advisor of Ndiso Consulting Group. So we've already touched on, the two sides, right? On the political, at the top, you have the mayor. On the administrative, at the top, you have the municipal manager. In council, you have the speaker. The mayor leads a team of his executive, which are the MMCs. The municipal manager also leads their own team of executives, which are really the administrative roles that one would know, senior managers handling different things in the administration. I asked a question before we went to news around the MMCs. What is their role and responsibilities? What are they there to do? Do we even need them?
So, members of the mayoral executive committee are obviously appointed, through the powers, given to the executive mayor through Section 60 of the Structures Act. So, and that is the prerogative of the mayor, to be able to appoint capable people who are going to be the lead or the political heads now of departments. So the executive mayor is the political head of the municipality. The members of the
sorry, Mielani, does the legislature say the people must be capable? I just need clarity. You're the rules guy. So does it say the mayor must appoint capable individuals? What does it say?
It may not say it in those particular terms, but I think the assumption, in fact, the delegation of authority. So the powers lie with the executive mayor to be able to discharge whatever the functions that are there. The executive mayor must then delegate powers. So each one of the powers that are delegated, whether it's to the members of the executive committee, which is the mayoral committee members, the MMCs, or delegated to the administration through the municipal manager, those roles are very clear. So let's take an example, 1-to-1, an MMC is like a minister in national, or it's like an MEC in provincial. So it becomes a very important role. So it cannot be a role that, is taken lightly, because whoever is appointed to that particular role, of course, then we presume that there's capability, we presume that there's capacity, we presume as well that, with the latest way of appointing these senior people, and of course they are councillors, let's just, put it in that way. They may come through as ordinary councillors, or, some may even be ward councillors, which, is, sometimes a heavy burden on them, but mainly they will be PR councillors. So we assume that, when you are leading finance, okay, and in fact, you should be someone who is financially oriented. Okay. If you are leading the technical functions, we assume that you are someone who understands the technical engineering issues that are involved and so on. It's not always the case, and I think that is the part which, of course, we must highlight that in some of the cases, the shortcoming of having MMCs is that they are not at times matched properly to the roles that they should be playing, or the qualifications that they are supposed to be having, or the experience that they may come with. Okay, so then you can ask, is the capability, is the capacity? And it's well now within our rights as, citizens, even when we go to council, because, council is where we also go as citizens to go and hold the councillors and council to account. So those are the issues that, can be questioned. And there are various ways of doing it through the Speaker's office and so on, to be able to challenge whatever the appointments that are there. So we'll get to the role of the citizenry. But in essence, an MMC should be that person that, also gives, a political leadership to a department. And political leadership which stroke technical, with a technical understanding.
Yeah, but Mielani, so let's say, how many MMCs do councils generally have?
Generally around 7.
Around 7 MMCs,
8,
right?
and so on, yeah. So
you have an MMC for transport, an MMC for finance. Who is sitting under that MMC?
So then who sits under the MMC becomes the head of department. Okay, so the head of department of transport, or the head of department of finance being the CFO, the head of department of economic development. These days they will call them group heads, or they would call them strategic, the directors, or, whatever the role that, you ascribe, to that person. But they are the accounting officer for the department. The municipal manager accounts for the entire municipality in terms of the administration. So essentially they should be working very closely with the head of department, and we assume that, they speak the same language in terms of alignment alignment in terms of plans, master plans, in terms of long-term planning, immediate issues, emergency issue, whatever the case may be, they are then able to hold the head of department accountable for delivering services.
So one would think that if you have a group executive for transport in a municipality, I don't know if that's a position that would exist, right?
Yes, it does.
Group executive for transport. One would assume that because it falls under that administrative part, then that individual reports directly to the municipal manager, which is part of what happens, no?
So each and every executive who is administrative reports directly to the municipal manager. But we can then say they have a dotted line to their political head, which is the MMC. So the MMC, of course, is not there to issue day-to-day instructions. They are there to ask, and to impress and to hold accountable and to point out, things that, are remiss, that have to do with the function, nothing else to do with the particular function. The long-term plans, of the city, So whatever the HOD or the head of department comes up with, from a political oversight point of view, should ideally run it through the municipal manager, their exco, and then be able to consult now the political head, which is the MMC. Because in council, the head of department does not have the powers to speak unless if it's special cases. They can speak at the mayoral committee because it is the committee of the executive mayor. But in council, under special circumstances, they may be allowed to speak. But really the ownership lies with the MMC because they are the councillor and they are responsible for that function. And the powers or the delegation of authority is upon them to be able to represent the department as well as the direction that the department is taking within there. So solid line in terms of day to day to the municipal manager. The head of departments must report into the municipal manager and still have another dotted line that goes into the MMC from a strategic point of view, if I may put it in those terms.
So what happens when we are in council? I'll give the example of a coalition government, right? You have a coalition government in place, Party A and Party B. Municipal manager belongs to Party A, right? Group head of finance it's an administrative role. MMC for finance, Party B representative. How do you ensure that there is a flow in the administration of what needs to be done? Because we can't say that there isn't a place where the needs of these two parties, Party A and Party B, conflict. And I think it's probably part of what we see at local government, where things administratively are falling apart, even though we know they shouldn't, because there is so much power and influence, perhaps is the better word to use, that MMCs also play when it comes to what is happening in the administration.
So the best way to also look at it is that once the IDP, Integrated Development Plan for the municipality, is adopted, that is now the strategy of the municipality, which will then be accounted for in council. Each and everyone, the executive mayor, must now abide with the IDP. So if that IDP, for instance, and it's the MMC or the Department of Transport and whatever the case may be, if it stipulates that, we are going to have a bus, rapid transit system, okay, that is what it is. If it stipulates that we're going to have a monorail, that is what it is. If it stipulates, that we are going to have, drones, flying this way and the other way, that is now must be cast, into the delivery of the municipality, whether it's in year 1, year 2, through the service delivery budget implementation plans. Now, the conflict, there should not be a conflict to start with, because you are Party A, Party B. Because if the assumption and the understanding is that there's one IDP, there's not an IDP for a particular political party. So this is where at least, the manifestos, at some stage, sees well, not cease to exist, but maybe fuse into what now is the goal of the municipality. Party A, B, C, D, own manifestos, this and that, and so on and so forth. Yes, you are there to implement the manifesto of your own political party, but it must be aligned with, the IDP of the municipality. It must also be part and parcel of all the statutes of the municipality. If they are not, and there is that conflict, the easy way to resolve it is to make sure that you go back to the IDP. So yes, there may be conflicts, and some of those conflicts, unfortunately, may be perhaps at a personal level. And I think that is something that is very difficult, to arbitrate. The issue here is that, an MMC should be then taking the IDP and looking at the SDBIP and saying, right, you are going to implement this, Mr. or Mrs. Group Head or Miss Group Head, whatever the case may be. This is what you are going to implement, correct? Show me a plan of how you are going to implement all of this. Show me in this case, they are not involved in procurement plans. Go and create a procurement plan for all of these things. So make sure that, there's a plan that, starts with you looking at the feasibility of this, doing whatever the process, and make sure you go to get a procurement plan that you are going to run. So the MMC is not involved in procurement. Councillors are not involved in procurement, and which is the separation now of powers within the municipality. The conflict can happen from many different areas. Okay, sometimes the councillor may want to influence the procurement plan, of which now they're on the wrong side of the law. At times, it may be the fact that, the HOD is not implementing or moving quickly enough to achieve, the goals. That can cause a conflict, and so on and so forth. So there are many different things that we can look at in terms of, how, some of the mismatches and conflicts should be there. So if we are running one plan in the utopian world, there should be no conflict, but because you have the various influences of how Party A would do it and how Party B would do it, you may differ in terms of tactics, and often that can cause constellation between how to then move forward. And you ask the question of why bring in a new team if you come in as an executive mayor? I think it's a very crucial question, and I think I would love to hear what those executive mayors are thinking about when they decide to overhaul the entire municipality. Okay, let's assume if there were problems within the municipality and the municipal manager is the accountability points a finger at the municipal manager that they have not done the things that they were supposed to do, then you have a problem. And they are well within their rights to look at how they find ways of moving beyond, that team that is not implementing.
It's interesting to me hearing you clarify the roles of the municipal manager and the fact that this individual is not supposed to be involved in the procurement.
The MMC, that is.
The MMC.
Yeah.
Yes, all right. Okay, so the MMC is not involved in procurement. The municipal manager is.
Yeah. Because
often those are also the individuals that are fingered when it comes to matters of procurement. So where does the co-opting take place in a local government level around procurement?
Clarify.
So where does the interference take place if Department Group Transport has a tender out for buses? And this tender now has to land in the hands of X individual. Is it solely the group transport and the municipal manager that can be held liable for that? Or does it require more players to have been part of the corruption to lead to that outcome?
So now let's go into the administration. Now, when it comes to procurement within a municipality, it is also supposed to be an independent function, which is now led by whether it's a chief procurement officer or head of procurement, in whichever way. They would typically be located within the finance department. In other areas, they may be outside of the finance department, but mostly they are reporting to the chief financial officer, because the chief financial officer and their delegation have also been given. In fact, the municipal manager is delegated, the powers, and then they sub-delegate to the chief financial officer to also look after the procurement function. And that is looked after by officials. So then the assumption is that Department of Transport wants to procure services to build 1 kilometer of tarred road. They must go and prepare the technical specifications as a department. And they must do everything that is in their powers to compare the pricing, to compare all of the different things, to the point where they say, we now understand, we have the designs as well. We have the technical specifications to the point where at least everything is outlined. Good. So now that specification must now go to an independent structure. Typically it will go to the bid specification committee, because then it must be scrutinized, it must be reviewed, and in the bid specification committee we'll see different experts, who will ask, the economic issues about, this road. I mean, the city planning, people that, will ask, or at least will point out that, the growth of town is going in this way. Why are we, building, and so on. So each one will give inputs to the point where then the finance as well, there will be a finance representative independent of that supply chain, person, will also then give input to say, do you have a budget for this? And so on. So that's how a specification will then be finalized or passed. Once that specification is finalized and approved, it is now in the hands of the supply chain department. And physically, the department should not interfere to say, hey, no, they must do all that is required to be done. And once it's approved, you freeze it. There should be no changes, unnecessarily so, unless if there are glaring things that have been discovered when the briefings take place. Then it will move in and get advertised. The tenders must be received by the supply chain management department. So then you can see that you are introducing players. Department writes a specification, takes it to the bid specification committee, encounters bid specification committee members that come from different departments and represent different functions, and then from there it's advertised. Now it's in the hands of the procurement officials. Now when it gets evaluated, another team must be put together, of which you will have various teams. So you can then see how many people start to get involved within a tender, and each one may come from a different point of view, may come from someone coming from finance, and I'm assuming that, these issues are insulated. But sure, in the event when there's no insulation, so I come from the Department of Transport, whoever, if you are not, at least, insulating yourself, you will hear things that says, hey, this must go this way, this must, and so on. But really, what should guide how the evaluation happens is what has been approved at the bid specification committee.
All right. And
everyone must qualify. But the point of saying everyone comes in, you can see that, there are a number of hands that come in. Department comes in from the committee at BSC, comes in at the bid evaluation, even at the bid adjudication, which is the final committee. There are so many people that, may want to give, their own point of view from how they understand the process.
All right.
Hopefully not persuaded by external factors.
We'll continue the conversation in a moment with Mielani Holeni after this.
The Talking Point with Kathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on the Talking Point. It's Municipal Watch, and today we're looking at the roles and responsibilities at local government, in particular the political roles and also the administrative roles. Mielani Holeni is my guest. Brian, you're calling us from Cape Town. Good morning.
Good morning to you and your guest. I just want to put a different slant to this topic. But, you see, my concern is, and this is the reason, in my view, why so many municipalities have collapsed, because there's so much corruption and flouting of the laws, bylaws, etc. I mean, I'll give you an example. In the area close to where I live, there's a robot, and every day for years this has been the case. There's a robot which has so many placards on it, of people wanting to sell items, and it's been on there, and the municipality, the council officials drive past us every day because there's a building, a council building close by, and no one does anything about it unless my understanding of the bylaws have changed. But I know you can't put any for sale sign on a robot. That has been there for years. The other thing is even concerning the building inspectors, also in close proximity, there's a house with 6 separate entrances and alongside a bridge. That also flouts the bylaws, and nothing. How they got the plans passed is beyond any of my understanding.
All right.
So this is why there's no accountability, no inspections. It's all talk about how nice things should be done, and it's like utopia, but they don't implement any of these rules.
Okay.
And there's no consequences.
All right, Brian. Thanks for that view, Mielani.
Okay, right.
And of course, Brian is correct. I think the bylaws in a municipality, bylaws are crucial because bylaws are at least it's a way of keeping order within the municipality, and those bylaws have to be statutory bylaws, and they have to go through council, and at least they come from legislation itself. Some emanate as far as from the constitution to be able to get to a point where they become a bylaw. But bylaws at least guide, things like you cannot have, for instance, maybe in the building area, building lines, or advertising of billboards and so on. So those are the ones that must be, in a way, policed to the point where there's adherence. Otherwise, there should be a system that finds the people that are breaking those bylaws.
I want to play some of the questions that have come through on the WhatsApp line, Mielani. I'll kick it over this one.
Hi, Kathy. With the gentleman there explaining the hierarchy in his procurement chain and scrutinizing committee, etc., I think it's all academic. How does he explain that there's 95% of collapse in the municipalities, and or 95% of the municipalities have collapsed, and all the explanations for the lack of service deliveries? So I think the talk for the last 25 minutes has just been academic. Thank you.
All right, Mielani.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that academic as it may sound, we must know where things can go wrong. I think that is the important thing that, we are putting forward, in here. If there's a specification which goes and builds a road that goes over someone's house or home, you must know where the problem could have been, because if we don't know as citizens how these various committees hang together, we go and burn buildings unnecessarily. We go and distract, property unnecessarily. So this is now, I think, for us to equip ourselves with that understanding that how do you then follow a process to go and query something that has a bearing or an impact on you as a citizen. Active citizenry, I think that is something that, this series are attempting to at least bring forward, that as citizens we have a role to play within council, we have a role to play in the way that, the municipality must discharge its functions. We can't sit back and merely just, complaining, but we need to take an active role, but we need to know where the problems or the breakdowns are emanating from.
All right, I'm going to stay then with the WhatsApp voice notes.
Good morning, Sis Kathy and your guest. Sis Kathy, I listened your guest very well. You know what? In Northwest, there's no such a thing. Yeah, in Matlosana municipality, the roof is on fire. Sis Kathy, they are stealing. They are taking. We don't know what is the service delivery. CFO, he received the bribe of 1.4 Amarok. He's still there. The councillor, they are supporting him so that we mustn't remove him. We try to remove him. How long we've been much from that CFO? And at that CFO's escape, he appoints service provider to collect waste collection. That lady didn't come, doesn't have even capacity, doesn't have a truck. He come after 3 weeks or once a month. But is it something normal? Cadre deployments are failing us, man. And those people are appointed by chairperson of the ANC. It's Percy.
Percy, thank you so much for that voice note. And I think, Mielani, it goes back to the question that I asked earlier around issues of procurement. How many people need to be involved in swaying things either one way or the other? So in the end, when things have gone wrong, it's not just one individual that is responsible. What is clear is that there is a collective of individuals that have bought in, that have supported, all of them, a process that has taken place.
Absolutely. And I think the previous voice note is absolutely correct, because there are a number of players that are there. The procurement function may be said to belong to the finance department. Therefore, the CFO may have all the powers. But here's the other thing. The municipal manager is the one who is delegated with these powers, and they sub-delegate these powers. So it means if that particular tender is not, at least, or whatever the exercise or the wrongdoing is not picked up by the municipal manager, it means then the municipal manager must account for everyone else who has been involved in the value chain. Otherwise, they must be the one who are the first to point out that, there is something amiss with the appointment, or there's something amiss with the service provider, or whatever the case may be. Or when they drive around, for instance, I drove around yesterday and I saw some of the fire hydrants, were leaking, with water and so on and so forth. So they, if one encounters such, they must be the first ones to say, but hang on, why are fire hydrants just leaking water, or why are there potholes? It means, there's a service provider that I've signed an appointment letter for who is not carrying out, the duties. Then they must be able to hold the municipal, the finance officers or the transport department, whichever departments that are involved in this. So yes, of course, we may talk, that this is academic and so on and so forth, where people are involved, and I think this is where the role of, the Speaker of Council also comes in, because we can petition through the Speaker's office, because the Speaker's office is there to serve the people and to hold now the councillors accountable.
All right.
Okay.
I think that will have to be part of the next conversation that we have, which is where we then come in as citizens. We've completely run out of time for this conversation with Mielani Holeni. We're going to leave it there for now for our Municipal Watch segment today. Up next is